everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of SOC Talk. My name is Richard Chapman. I'm the Cybersecurity Program Director and SOC Manager with CyberNow Labs. And guys, I have an amazing guest today. Actually, I'm super excited to have this guest with us today. This guest is Molly Payne. She is a Cybersecurity Manager and honestly, one of the first people that I actually worked for when I first got into cybersecurity. So I'm super excited to have you here, Molly. Hi, Molly. How's it going?
It's going great. Oh my gosh, it's wonderful. Wonderful to see you again, Richard. Thanks for reaching out.
Absolutely. I'm just happy you didn't fire me at the very beginning. I'm going to be honest. Actually, I'll tell you, one of my favorite stories and favorite things to remember is the fact that you basically challenged me my very first day that I had access. You're like, you have 3 hours to go do this, and that. I was like, okay. And I did. And as soon as you came back and checked everything and looked at everything and we walked through it, you're like, you're golden. I was like, oh.
You can breathe.
So I was very appreciative of not only the trust that you put in me, but honestly, the guidance that you gave me as well, too. And I hold you in high regard. So thank you again for being with us today. We're going to talk about what a SOC is. This show is called SOC Talk. So we've got to lay the foundation, right? We got to talk about what is a SOC, right? We're talking about like socks that you put on with shoes, right?
Oh yeah, completely. And in fact, the first time I heard this word, it was my first job. And so the way it worked was, I went out and put out some resumes and got a hit back. And they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to hire you for the SOC analyst. So I went back to my community college professor and said, oh my gosh, I got a job. He got excited. He's like, whoa, what are you doing? I was like, I'm working in a SOC. And he's like, what is that? And I said, I don't know yet, but I'll let you know when I find out. So I didn't even know it stood for a Security Operations Center when I started,
Well, I definitely think that, first off, that's a great story. And second off, I'm surprised you went down that road. That's like driving down in the middle of the night with no headlights. So, but I think the idea of a SOC is maybe a little more commonplace today. But I do think there's a lot of people that don't really have a picture of what it looks like. So I really want to kind of address that. So first off, what does SOC stand for?
Yeah, the Security Operations Center.
Okay.
And I think in the name, it kind of encapsulates, what I love about it, managing and working at them, is that it is a center of operations. You've got a group of people who are together for a common cause of trying to keep something secure. So it's always hopping, or at least interesting. Always very dynamic. I remember that.
I definitely dynamic. And I can tell you, I remember there were times where it was a little more stressful, but I also remember times where it really wasn't. And you were just kind of going, I hate to say going through the motions, but you're really kind of going through the motions. Mm-hmm. It's not like every single day you have these big attacks that happen. Although it does seem like more frequently now, it's, every day there's these massive attacks that are happening. So it seems like there's more activity, but, it's such a dynamic environment and it's different everywhere, right? Like you've been in multiple security operations centers, right? And they all kind of have a different face.
They do. And that's fun about it too. I'm glad you brought up that it's not always, the world isn't always on fire, right? Except, the memes are fun to look at. But I remember the first operations center I worked at was for a firewall company, right? And basically we just made sure that people's things talk to each other, right? So our emergency wasn't so much ransomware, but it was, hey, my grocery scanner can't scan the bananas. Can you tell me what's going on? Or my trivia game isn't working from table 13, right? And so it had a different vibe. And I remember I started out on night shift, right? Trying to just get a foothold somewhere. And there were Nerf guns. And it was silliness and it was kind of fun, right? Because when it's low stress, it can be super entertaining and just kind of fun.
Yeah. My SOC experience, I didn't really see what some people refer to as like alert fatigue, where they're overworked and quote unquote underpaid. I know that there are some SOC operations that are kind of like that. They're structured a little differently, or budgetary constraints really don't allow them to fill roles, or whatever the reason may be. But for the most part, my experience has been fantastic, and most of the people that I'm familiar with that have worked in security operations centers feel pretty much the same way. You've been in multiple security operations centers. Have you kind of seen a little bit of both?
Yeah, I kind of have. So, and I think, as one would guess, a lot of leadership drives that. I've been in organizations where fear of missing an alert drove leadership to turn on all the alerts. Right. That's a pretty human thing. And so I've watched that kind of grind down on folks. But then I've also been in SOCs that were well balanced. The managers really tried hard to make sure that it was an alert they cared about, right? And those, I think, definitely were the best because they provided space to talk to each other, right? Because the personalities are great, right? I think I remember working on one SOC where we had someone who'd come up through the help desk, right? And they were super jazzed to be working in security. And then someone in that exact same SOC had been in the industry for like 20 years, right? And was like, okay, I don't want to be in charge of anyone. I just want to stay current, right? And so here was this goat, for lack of a better word, that you could always go to and ask questions, right? And then you had someone that wasn't really technical, but they could convince anyone, right? So if you needed to craft some sort of write-up to convince the managers to turn something on and off, you'd go over to them, right? So it was like this I don't know, smorgasbord of different talents that kind of work together.
It's funny that you say that. I have met so many different people from so many different backgrounds who got their start in something completely different. And, some of them, I think, have talents that you don't associate with a security operations center, but the diversity, the different thinking, the different perspectives really actually, in my opinion, they actually enhance your security operations center team, because if everybody's looking at the alert the exact same way, there's a possibility of somebody missing something there, right? So that diversity is really important, I think. And again, I've seen so many different people from so many different backgrounds. So that's one of the things I love about the Security Operations Center is it's not just a bunch of middle-aged white guys that live in their mom's basements, right? I mean, you really do have people of all walks of life, all backgrounds. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually were a teacher at some point in time?
Yeah, I'm a middle school teacher. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and honestly, that's a heck of a tool belt to bring to the table for a security operations center. But some people go, a teacher to a SOC person, like, really? Is that? Yeah, if you have the right drive and determination and training and really can build your experience, it can happen, right?
Yeah, and the other thing, kind of building off what you said about diversity and backgrounds, is that I feel this industry is so welcoming to that career change, that shift. And because I don't know, I think some of the best analysts I've worked with in SOCs, their skill sets, they have the ability to be technical, right? But no one usually comes out of the box with that. So, for all you folks out there that are beginning, it's okay, right? It takes time. But it's the curiosity and it's the drive to understand and kind of solve these weird mysteries about the oddness of computers and networking, right? That end up giving you that pretty robust background to track this stuff down, because we all know computers are strange.
I say it all the time. Technology is great until it's not. It happens all the time. The moment you need it to function perfectly, something goes wrong. So, and you just have to be able to work through those and stay patient, all that fun stuff, right? But thinking about the SOC landscape now, I know things are a lot different now because we've got a lot of SOC operations used to be on-site, right? Mm-hmm. Secure location, badging in, man traps, all those kind of, items that you learn about when you're studying Security Plus. But the landscape's totally different now with hybrid roles and complete remote roles. You've got a little bit of a different look and feel to the SOC. Do you think that changes the dynamic?
I do. I think it provides challenges, and I think it actually makes it a little more difficult, just because if someone isn't very outgoing, do you know what I mean? If they're new to the industry, maybe they've got the imposter syndrome going on, right? And we've all gone through that. It adds another layer to having to reach out to someone online and like message them like, hey, I'm working on this alert. Can you help me? Right? There's a lot of things that have to happen for that to be. You have to be able to admit you don't know something, which is terrifying when you start, even though we all don't know anything, right? When we start, Right. So I think that makes it a little more difficult. But I think it also can provide sort of, once you get used to that, I think makes it easier, because not only can you reach out to the people on your shift, but you can reach out to people outside of your shift, right? Once you get used to those online tools. But I think it's harder, without a doubt. I definitely saw a difference from being a manager of analysts on site, and then COVID hit, right? Everyone instantly remote, right? And then hybrid environment of trying to balance that. So.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of SOC operations are going hybrid, where you're in the SOC a couple of days, but then you get to work from home a couple of days, and it kind of is the best of both worlds. I like that. I think it's nice. I pretty much can work mostly remote if I wanted to, but I enjoy coming to the office and interacting with the people in the office, and it provides that personal connection, I think, better than a Zoom or a Teams chat or a Slack message. It's just not. I don't think it's as cohesive, in my opinion. But if you have the right team, people can still do the work. So there's that benefit there. Thinking about the structure of the SOC and how many people are in a SOC, what would you say? I know it varies, but what would you say an average SOC kind of looks like as far as how many people work in a SOC?
It seems like in kind of the larger enterprises I've worked in, I feel like it's usually about 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And I think 3 is probably more standard for a smaller one, depending on the alert volume, and if it follows the sun or not, it's 24/7. So yeah, I'd kind of probably ballpark between 3 and 6,
Okay.
And what's kind of interesting too is it can be so caveat, unless you're working at an MSP, then your SOC could be huge. It could be really, really large.
It's funny. I was going to ask you, were you thinking about like a self-contained SOC for a smaller company, or are you talking about enterprise or MSSP? Because obviously those do look a little different. Your self-contained SOC for a small company, maybe a handful of people, whereas your MSSP, you could have 20, 30, 50 people, depending on what size the MSSP is. And that also is determined by who you're including in the SOC, right? All your support roles, your project managers, your engineers, your intelligence people, your threat hunters, like exactly how do they all fit into the security operations center as a whole, right?
Right. And it's probably no surprise to all of us that probably the best SOCs I've been in worked hard to integrate all the teams into one SOC, whereas like the intelligence folks, they weren't hidden away somewhere. You didn't have access to them, same with the hunters, right? The more there was collaboration between everyone who was actively working or creating alerts, always made it better, right? More effective. Cool. People learned a lot faster too. Like if an analyst could be like, this alert triggered, okay, I know the gal that made this alert. I'm just going to go ask her, what does a true positive look like? Bam. So much easier.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, there are differences between the self-contained, where you can literally look up the user and reach out to that person and say, hey, I'm seeing this. Can you tell me a little bit about, like, did you have some activity that may have generated that? And that's kind of that nice connection. MSSP, you kind of lose that a little bit. You're having to send over a report to the company that may or may not ever get back to you, right?
Right. It's like this black box. You're like, all right, well, they're online today. Okay, I guess it was all right. But you're right. It's like when that MSSP environment, that interaction with the company, some companies view MSSP P's as a, I don't know, set it and forget it. Do you know what I mean? Like, phew, I got that, right? But I'm not going to really prioritize the time to connect with them over and over again and work with their SOC, or heaven forbid, connect our local SOC with the remote SOC, that's challenging for everybody, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, you and I could probably sit and talk about security operations centers all day long. So we might have to do another episode at some point in time on maybe a little bit different topic. But to wrap this up, what is your favorite part about being in cyber?
Oh my gosh, the people. The people are they're fun. They're in any other industry I've worked in, they've never been as diverse or interesting. Do you know what I mean? The people are great.
Absolutely. Well, Molly, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you obviously have a lot on your plate, and I appreciate you taking the time to meet with us and to spend some time with our viewers. And obviously, this is the first episode, so we'll see where it goes from here. Hopefully, it catches. But again, thank you so much. And again, for all of you out there that are watching, again, if you don't know what a security operations center is, just research, Google it. It's a famous guidance piece of information that you will get from time to time. Google it, research it, be resourceful. Security operations centers, fun to work in, great environments. And we look to bring you some more episodes talking about SOC here on SOC Talk. And again, Richard from CyberNow Labs. Look forward to seeing you guys again in the future.